Good evening and welcome to News Central TV. My name is Mazino Appeal. Here are stories making headlines beyond the continent. We begin the news in North America, where U.S. President Donald Trump has escalated trade tensions with China, threatening to impose an additional 50% tariff unless Beijing withdraws its 34% retaliatory tariff on U.S. goods. If enacted, this could result in U.S. companies facing a staggering 104% tax on certain Chinese imports. The threat comes as U.S. markets experience sharp declines, with Europe's largest stock exchanges, including London's FTSE 100, closing more than 4% down. In the midst of this economic volatility, the European Union has offered zero-for-zero tariffs on select goods exported to the U.S., attempting to ease trade tensions and mitigate the global economic impact of the ongoing dispute.
I don't want anything to go down, but sometimes you have to take medicine to fix something. And we have such a horrible, we have been treated so badly by other countries because we had stupid leadership that allowed this to happen. They took our businesses, they took our money, they took our jobs. They moved was largely true. The report is that we had a deal pretty much with TikTok. Not a deal, but pretty close. And then China changed the deal because of tariffs. If I gave a little cut in tariffs, they'd approve that deal in 15 minutes, which shows you the power of tariffs, right? President. 5 or 6. I've spoken to many countries. They all want to do, just so you understand the power of what I'm doing. Every country is calling and being very solicitous of us. Very, very nice. They're being very nice. And it's not going to be, I don't think inflation is going to be a big deal because if you look at me, I took in hundreds of billions of dollars. This is not new to me. I took in during my 4 years hundreds of billions of dollars from China. And we also.
For more on this, I'm joined by our international correspondent, Afia Hagen. Afia, good evening. Thank you very much for joining us this evening. If you would, could you tell us what the latest is on the markets?
A very turbulent day on the markets, to say the absolute least, starting with the Hang Seng in Hong Kong, that stock market that opened hours ago in the morning. That market had the worst day that it had since 1997, with the markets down 12.9%. On mainland China, the Shanghai Composite down more than 8%. Now, this was its first day of trading since Thursday because they had a regional holiday on Friday. So to Europe now, where the FTSE 100 currently opened 6% lower than usual, closed about 4% down than it usually was. The German markets opened 10% down before recovering to about 7% down. The French markets opened 6% down, and the markets in the United States are doing the same thing. The Dow Jones, the NASDAQ opening very much about 6 to 7% down, now in some slight gains, slightly in the green at 0.01% above sort of the base level, but a very, very turbulent day on the markets. There was a rumour that proved to be false earlier on, where there was a rumour going around that perhaps the tariffs might be paused for 90 days. The markets rallied until it was proven that that was false. The White House saying that that was fake news. The markets bottomed out yet again. So an incredibly turbulent day for the markets. Now, before the markets actually opened, some commentators were predicting that today could be the worst day on the markets since Black Monday in 1987. It wasn't as bad as that, but it was pretty bad.
Okay, and well, we did see a clip of Trump telling from before, but how is he reacting to the markets falling?
Yeah, that's right. You saw that clip of President Trump on Air Force One, very bullish, still going ahead with the tariff, still maintaining that it's a great idea. He posted on his Truth Social platform that the US has a chance to do something that it should have done decades ago, and calling on people not to be weak or stupid, adding, "Don't be a panican," a new party based on weak and stupid people. Not entirely sure what he means by that new term, but it could be a new Trumpism. We have lots of them, a way to criticize anyone who has concerns over his tariffs, particularly Republicans panicking. But maybe that's where he got that from, and telling people to be strong, courageous, just patient and saying that greatness will be the result. So Trump and the White House remaining bullish, remaining on course that this is a good idea, whilst everyone else around them seems to be saying pretty much the opposite.
So which governments are trying to negotiate with Washington to get maybe a better deal over the impending tariffs?
Well, Trump says over 50 countries are courting the United States at the moment. Today, the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is visiting the White House. There'll be a press conference later on this evening, an address from the Oval Office instead of, the usual big press conference that we would expect on a day like today. I'm sure that the war in Gaza will be on that agenda as well, but tariffs are certainly going to be the forefront of that conversation. Japan, Mexico, Russia, Canada, all those countries wanting to have conversations, but also threatening their own retaliatory tariffs. China said it could impose 34% tariff on US goods, US reiterating and coming back and saying they might put a 50% tariff on goods. It goes back and forth. Israel's Prime Minister, like I said, visiting today. India has said that it won't announce reciprocal tariffs, but is in conversation. Taiwan's president has offered zero tariffs on a basis for talks with the US. Vietnam, one of their leaders were one of the first to speak to Trump amidst the flurry of tariffs, asking Trump to delay the implementation of them. Here in the UK, Sir Keir Starmer very unhappy about the tariffs, but open to negotiation. The EU remaining bullish as well today, and saying that tariffs certainly not a good idea, and contemplating retaliatory measures as well.
Well, Afia, thank you very much, and we do expect that you'd cover or continue to cover this, and we'll come to you for more on these. Thank you. Now, in a recent post on his Truth social platform, US President Donald Trump says he has spoken with Japan's Prime Minister, expressing dissatisfaction over Japan's trade practices with the US. Trump accused Japan of treating the US very poorly on trade and emphasized that this situation must change. Now, Trump added that it has to change, especially with China, signaling his ongoing concern about US-China trade relations. His comments suggest the continued focus on challenging trade imbalances with key global partners as Trump advocates for stronger economic policies in negotiations with both Japan and China. The European Union has warned it is ready to use every tool in its trade defense arsenal to shield itself from the impact of new tariffs imposed by US President Donald Trump should ongoing negotiations fail. EU Trade Chief Maros Sefcovic made the statement on Monday, stressing that the EU would protect its single market producers and consumers. Sefcovic made this known to reporters after a meeting of the bloc's trade ministers in Luxembourg. The EU's response highlights growing tensions in international trade as both sides prepare for potential escalation in their economic standoff.
Deterring trade divergence. On deterring trade divergence, we are prepared to use every tool in our trade defense arsenal to protect EU single market, EU producers, and EU consumers. We will start by enhancing our import surveillance system to track real-time import flows, feeding our action with a timely intelligence, and I think you just heard from the President von der Leyen that to that effect we will set up a specific task.
And UK leader Keir Starmer on Monday vowed to shelter British businesses from the storm of global economic disruptions as he loosened electric vehicle targets for car makers impacted by US President Donald Trump's tariffs. The world's auto sector has been hit hard by Washington's sweeping new levies, which impose a 25% tariff on vehicles imported into the United States. Starmer unveiled plans to give manufacturers more flexibility in transitioning to electric vehicles in a bid to boost the sector as it battles the higher costs of the levies.
Today, we're going to introduce much more flexibility into EV mandates. We're going to help car companies based in Britain reach the targets in a way that supports growth. We're going to cut down any fines, which I don't want or expect to see, by 20%, and any money that's raised will be invested directly back into support for the British car industry. So your question is, at a moment like this, we have to shape our future. We have to step up. We can't be cowed and simply say, there are things happening in a changing world which make it more difficult, and therefore we retreat. This is the moment to seize that opportunity.
And away from that, the United States has announced drastic new measures against South Sudan, revoking visas issued to all South Sudanese passport holders. This move comes amidst escalating tensions over deportations. News Central's international correspondent, Avia Hagen, has the details.
Soon enough, in a matter of weeks, not months.
In a bold move, US Secretary of State Marco Rubio announced that visas issued to all South Sudanese passport holders are being immediately revoked. Additionally, all South Sudanese nationals attempting to enter the US will be denied entry at ports of entry. Rubio accused South Sudan's transitional government of failing to accept deported citizens in a timely manner, citing the country's refusal to cooperate as a violation of international protocols. The decision is part of President Donald Trump's broader immigration policy, which aims to enforce mass deportations. The US has clashed with various nations over repatriation agreements, with South Sudan now at the centre of this conflict. Meanwhile, concerns are mounting that South Sudan could slide back into civil war. Sporadic fighting continues despite a 2018 peace agreement that halted the years of bloody conflict between President Salva Kiir and Vice President Riek Machar. More South Sudanese nationals currently residing in the US have been under temporary protected status, which was due to expire by May 3rd. Now their future remains uncertain. The move also impacts prominent South Sudanese figures, including 18-year-old Duke University basketball star Kaman Malawak. Duke University released a statement saying it's urgently investigating how the announcement may affect students like Malawak, who fled violence in his homeland as a child and is now expected to join the NBA. The Trump administration's approach is not isolated to South Sudan. Earlier this year, Colombia faced similar issues when its president initially refused US deportation flights. For now, the US remains firm on its decision, and the future of many South Sudanese nationals remains in limbo. For News Central, I'm Afia Hagen.
And China has pledged to maintain stable relations with South Korea despite recent political changes. Following the removal of South Korean President Yoon Suk-yeol by the nation's constitutional court, China expressed hopes for Seoul to continue advancing its domestic political agenda smoothly while ensuring social and political stability. Chinese officials emphasized that their relationship with South Korea would remain consistent and predictable moving forward. In related news, China criticized the United States tariffs program initially introduced by former President Donald Trump, accusing Washington of pursuing global dominance under the guise of reciprocity. Now, the Chinese government condemned these actions as protectionist and economically coercive, claiming they sacrificed the interests of other nations to further the U.S. agenda, undermining international norms.
为名行霸权之实，牺牲各国的正当利益，服务一己之私，将美国优先凌驾于国际规则之上，是典型的单边主义、保护主义和经济霸凌行径。中方注意到了这一裁决和相关的决定，这是韩国的内部事务。我们希望韩国有序地推进国内的政治议程，保持政局和社会稳定。我们愿同韩方一道，坚守建交初心，坚定睦邻友好方向，坚持互利共赢目标，推动中韩战略合作伙伴关系健康稳定向前发展。
We now go on a short break. When we return, Myanmar fighting continues despite earthquake ceasefire. Stay with us. Welcome back. In Europe, the mayor of Vaux-en-Vanille, a town on the outskirts of Lyon, has vowed to prevent drug dealers from resettling in the area after a young man was tragically shot dead in broad daylight near a primary school. Authorities attribute the violence to an ongoing gang war among local drug dealers. The tragic incident has raised concerns over safety in the community, particularly around schools. In response, the mayor firmly stated that they will not let dealers resettle on the spot as the town grapples with escalating crime.
Trafiquants qui ont été présentés à la justice et il y a des tentatives pour réinstaller ce point de vue. Eh bien, les forces de l'État vont se mobiliser, les forces de police vont continuer le travail. On ne laissera pas les trafiquants se réinstaller à proximité d'une école. Nous sommes déterminés et on ira jusqu'au bout. Alors, qu'est-ce qu'on va faire maintenant? On va mobiliser des forces de CRS qui vont être présentes pendant plusieurs semaines avec les policiers locaux, les forces de police, la BST qui est présente, et on va saturer l'espace public. On ne laissera pas ces trafiquants se réinstaller sur place. Nous sommes
And Germany has lost its position as the top destination for asylum applications in the European Union, according to new EU data. Now, Interior Minister Nancy Faeser confirmed that for the first time in years, Germany is no longer receiving the most asylum requests. In March, fewer than 10,000 new cases were reported. Media reports citing an EU Commission report indicated that France and Spain had surpassed Germany in the first quarter of the year. Eurostat data also showed a shift in trends, with France and Spain receiving more asylum applications than Germany in February. The decline in new applications comes after efforts to curb irregular migration to Europe, with a nearly 45% drop in asylum requests compared to 2024. This issue remains central in German political debates, especially with upcoming coalition negotiations. Meanwhile, in the Middle East, the Palestinian Red Crescent Society has called for an independent international inquiry into the killing of 15 humanitarian workers during an Israeli forces attack in Gaza last month. Yunus al-Khatib, the organization's president, urged the global community to form an impartial commission to investigate the deliberate targeting of ambulance crews. Speaking during a press briefing in Ramallah on Monday, al-Khatib called on the world to form an independent and impartial international commission of inquiry into the circumstances of the deliberate killing of the ambulance crew in the Gaza Strip. The call comes amid heightened tensions and concerns for the safety of humanitarian workers in conflict zones.
نطالب العالم واحد تشكيل لجنة تحقيق دولية مستقلة ومحايدة، وهذا ما طلبناه أيضا من مجلس الأمن في ظروف القتل المتعمد لطواقم الإسعاف، ومحاسبة المسؤولين عن هذه الانتهاكات الصارخة للقانون الدولي الإنساني.
And happening now, U.S. President Donald Trump is hosting his Israeli counterpart Benjamin Netanyahu in the White House. The visit comes amidst the turmoil in the global economy following President Trump's tariffs, which have triggered a trade war between the U.S. and countries around the world. PM Netanyahu hopes to negotiate some reprieve for the tariffs. Now let's go live to Washington, D.C. and hear what both leaders have to say on the raging issue as well as the war in Gaza.
And we had just a lot of good talks on a lot of things. I appreciate very much what you said about the tariffs. We've been ripped off and taken advantage of by many countries over the years, and can't do it anymore. Just can't do it anymore. We can't be the stupid people anymore. And it's all because of the people that sat in the seat right here. Not your seat, but this seat. They allowed things to happen to our country that they shouldn't have allowed to happen on trade and other things, many other things. I mean, look at what's happened with our last president, where he allowed millions of people to come into our country with an open border. Who would want an open border? How stupid was that? But he allowed millions and millions of people And of the millions, and I think it was 21 million people, but let's say 3 of them were serious criminals, serious murderers and drug dealers and gang members and people from jails. All the jails emptied out right into our country, right along the open border on Mexico, generally the Mexico. They came in from Canada too, by the way, a lot. But generally speaking, on the southern border. And what a shame it is that we are now working very hard to get them out, get the criminals out, get the murderers out, the drug dealers, the mentally insane, get them out. They dropped the mentally insane in our country too. And this was all done by the Biden administration. It's a disgrace that we have to work so hard. And then we have judges that try and protect these people, but they didn't protect us when the people were being let in. But to get them out is never easy with these people. So I think we're doing a great job. The border is the best it's ever been. Even as strong as it was, I had a great, solid border. I think it might even be tougher right now and stronger. So people are coming into our country, but they're coming in legally. We have a legal process, and we have that moving along properly, because we need people to come into our country, but we want people that can love our country and cherish our country. So that's where we are. And with that, any questions?
Mr. President, to the markets today, and would you be open to a pause in tariffs to allow for negotiations?
Well, we're not looking at that. We have many, many countries that are coming to negotiate deals with us, and they're going to be fair deals, and in certain cases they're going to be paying substantial tariffs. There'll be fair deals. As you know, I spoke this morning with the Prime Minister of Japan, and we had a very good conversation. They're coming. And I said, one thing, you're going to have to open up your country, because we sold no cars, like 0 cars in Japan, and they sold millions of cars into our country. They don't really take our agriculture, a little bit of it just to keep us slightly happy, but they don't take what they're supposed to be taking. So we have a great relationship with Japan. We're going to keep it that way, but they're coming in to meet, and other countries are coming in. With China, as you know, against my statement, they put a 34% tariff on above what their ridiculous tariffs were already. And I said, if that tariff isn't removed by tomorrow at 12 o'clock, we're putting a 50% tariff on above the tariffs that we put on. So they've gone for years. They've become a rich country because of people, again, that were in the White House that allowed this to happen. Hundreds of billions of dollars a year they'd make on us on trade, and it shouldn't be that way. And I have a great relationship with President Xi. I hope it's going to stay that way. I have great respect for China, but they can't do this. We're going to have one shot at this, and no other president's going to do this, what I'm doing. And I'll tell you what, it's an honor to do it, because we have been just destroyed, what they've done to our system. You know, we have $36 trillion of debt for a reason. And the reason is that people allowed it to get that way. So we'll be talking to China. We'll be talking to a lot of different countries. And I think, you know, if we can make a really fair deal and a good deal for the United States, not a good deal for others. This is America first. It's now America first. And we didn't put America first. We put America last. The people that were in the Oval Office put America last, and we're not going to stand for it.
The U.S. in the talks with Iran.
2 questions. Do you expect any of these deals to be made before April 9th? And secondly, there have been some mixed messages from your administration. You're talking about negotiations, and yet others in your administration are saying that these tariffs are actually permanent. What is the actual?
Well, they can both be true. There can be permanent tariffs, and there can also be negotiations, because there are things that we need beyond tariffs. We need open borders. You know, we almost had a deal with China where we're going to open up China. It was almost done. Some of you remember it during my first term, and it was very disappointing. We ended up making a great deal. $50 billion worth of product was sold. $50 billion. You'd like that in Israel. And I made that deal, but it wasn't the deal that I wanted. It was the deal that I wanted was that, plus they were going to open up China so that our companies could go into China and compete with other countries and China for the, you know, for a large number of people. And at the very end, that deal was terminated, and we went to a piece of the deal. And so there are a lot of things outside of tariffs, but tariffs are very important. But there are a lot of things like opening up countries that were totally closed. China's essentially a closed country. In fact, it is a closed country. And what they do is they charge tariffs so that if you sell cars or if you sell anything, nobody's going to buy it because the price is out of control. But that's true with a lot of other countries also. So we're going to get fair deals and good deals with every country, and if we don't, we're going to have nothing to do with them. They're not going to be allowed to participate in the United States. Mr. President, we have time. This gentleman is all day long.
Mr. President, thank you for the chance. Many of Palestinian Americans who voted for you and not for Biden because you promised them to end the war in Gaza.
Very honored by that vote, too.
The war is still going on and there's no hostage deal. Do you have any update on that?
Well, I'd like to see the war stop, and I think the war will stop at some point that won't be in the too distant future. Right now we have a problem with hostages. We're trying to get the hostages out. We got quite a few of them out, but it's a long process. It shouldn't be that long. We have a big problem that we've done. I think I'll ask Pete to maybe talk about it for a second, because a lot of people are asking the Houthis. We've been very tough and very successful militarily. We've really damaged them badly. These were people shooting down ships and other things, by the way, flying objects like airplanes. And we've put a major hurt on the Houthis, which nobody's been able to do. We've really hit them hard, and they know it, and they don't know what to do. And it's every night, night after night, and we've gotten many of their leaders and their experts. They're experts on missiles. I mean, they actually make missiles. Nobody thought that, but they make missiles. They're highly sophisticated, and they're very tough, but they've been very badly damaged. Nobody else was able to do that but us. Pete, you want to discuss that, please?
Yes, sir. It's been a bad 3 weeks for the Houthis, and it's about to get worse. It's been a devastating campaign, whether it's underground facilities, weapons manufacturing, bunkers, troops in the open, air defense assets. We are not going to relent. And it's only to get more unrelenting until the Houthis declare they will stop shooting at our ships. And we've been very clear at the Iranians as well. They should not continue to provide support to the Houthis, and that message has been made very clear. So we have a lot more options and a lot more pressure to apply, and we know, because we see the reports, how devastating this campaign has been in them, and we will not relent.
We have a great military. There's no military like our military, and despite Biden having given a lot, but nevertheless a pretty small piece, but it was a lot of our military away in Afghanistan, and one of the dumbest situations, I think, and maybe the most embarrassing situation we've ever been involved in, that short period of time in Afghanistan. What a disgrace that was, but left a lot of our military behind, left you see them in their annual parades where they're parading trucks that are armor-plated and different things that they can't, but it's many billions of dollars we left behind. But despite that, we have a tremendous military. That was a very small portion because we rebuilt the military during my first term, and we have great things happening with our military. We also essentially approved a budget which is in the facility. You'll like to hear this, of $1 trillion, $1 trillion, and nobody's seen anything like it. We have to build our military, and we're very cost conscious, but the military is something that we have to build, and we have to be strong because you got a lot of bad forces out there now. So we're going to be approving a budget, and I'm proud to say, actually, the biggest one we've ever done for the military. We're cutting other things that were under DOGE, but under a lot of other. When you look at a woman getting $2 billion for environmental, and it had nothing to do with environmental, and they had $100 in the bank and they give her $2 billion. Many of those cases, all that stuff is going to be cut out. But we are getting a very, very powerful military. We have things under order now, the likes of which we've never had before. We've never had the kind of aircraft, the kind of missiles, anything that we have ordered. And it's in many ways too bad that we have to do it, because hopefully we're not going to have to use it. But the military is very, very powerful, and it's going to remain that way.
How do you...
Yes, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. I want to ask you about Iran, because this is the first time we hear that the U.S. is having a direct contact with the Iranians. Is it possible to give us some more information at what level the U.S. is represented?
High level, very high level.
And
we're dealing with the Iranians. We have a very big meeting on Saturday, and we're dealing with them directly. You know, a lot of people say, oh, maybe you're going through surrogates, or you're not dealing directly, you're dealing through other countries. No, we're dealing with them directly, and maybe a deal is going to be made. That would be great. It'll be really great for Iran, I can tell you that. But hopefully, we're not going to have to get into that. We are meeting very importantly on Saturday at almost the highest level. And we'll see how it works out. Please.
How do you ensure, Mr. President, that these tariffs don't drive U.S. trading partners into the hands of the Chinese?
I'm not worried about it. I'm not worried about it. If they want to be in the hands of the U.S., they don't want to be in the hands of the Chinese. And the Chinese have turned out to be really not very good at that. People that are with us, they're with us. But we cannot be taken advantage of any longer. I used to watch these deals for years. I've been talking about it for years. You know, I've been talking about it for 35 years, how our country is being ripped off. I mean, 30 years ago it was Japan, then it was something else, then it was another group, then it was China. China's doing the best job of it, frankly. And it's just not going to happen. Not going to happen.
That they have offered 0 for 0 tariffs on cars and industrial goods. Is that not enough?
Well, the EU, no, it's not. The EU has been very tough over the years. I always say it was formed to really do damage to the United States in trade. That's the reason it was formed. It was formed with all of the countries from Europe, I guess most of them, not all of them, but most of them. And they formed together to create a little bit of a monopoly situation, to create a unified force against the United States for trade. So they have NATO, which is largely the same countries, and they took advantage of us dollar-wise and militarily until I got there. You know, I was able to get $600 billion from NATO, where they paid NATO because most of these nations weren't even paying. We were paying for NATO, so we're paying them to guard them militarily, and they're screwing us on trade. So that's not a good combination. So now it's really turned around. It's the opposite, and the European Union's been very bad to us. They don't take our cars, like Japan in that sense. They don't take our agricultural product. They don't take anything practically. And yet they send millions of cars in a year, Mercedes-Benz, Volkswagen, BMWs. They're sending millions and millions of cars into the U.S., but we don't have a car that's been sold to the European Union or other places, but let's go for the European Union. And it's not going to be that way. It's got to be fair and reciprocal. It's got to be fair. It's not fair. We have a deficit with the European Union of $350 billion, and it's going to disappear fast. And one of the reasons and one of the ways that that can disappear easily and quickly is they're going to have to buy our energy from us because they need it. They're going to have to buy it from us. They can buy it. We can knock off $350 billion in 1 week. They have to buy and commit to buy a like amount of energy, and we have that. You know, we have more energy than any country in the world. I don't know if you know that. He knows everything, but the one thing he may not know, we have more energy than any country in the world. We have more of every kind of energy, every form of energy, from oil and gas to coal, and people talk about, I call it beautiful, clean coal. As you know, Germany is opening up a coal plant a week. They tried the windmills and it didn't work. They tried all the other solutions and they were ready to go out of business. Now they're doing a coal plant a week. China is now up to 2 coal plants. They're opening 2 major coal plants every single week in China, all over China. And then we're not allowed to use coal. Well, we have clean, beautiful coal more than anybody else. We have oil and gas more than anybody else. We have the most energy of any country in the world, including Saudi Arabia, including everybody, by a lot. And I took it to number 1. We were number 3, and I took it to number 1 during my administration. And the reason that we were hurt so badly and the reason that we went into such incredible inflation during Biden is energy. It was also their bad spending, but energy, because they played around with this incredible thing that we had built, this administration had built, and the energy costs went through the roof. And when that went up, everything else followed. Now, if you look at what's happening, you got to see this today. I said we're going to try and get groceries down, right? An old-fashioned term, but a beautiful term. Eggs. So when I got in, the press went absolutely crazy the first week. They said, eggs have quadrupled in price. I said, I just got here. Tell me about it. And Brooke Rollins and our team did a great job, and eggs are down now 79%, and they're all over the place. And this was a problem that somebody else would have taken a long time to cure. We have energy is down. We have interest rates are down. We have groceries, meaning food is down. We have everything is down at levels that nobody ever thought possible. Energy looks like it's going to be in the $2.50 a gallon range, and maybe below that for a car. So for gasoline. So we're really doing amazing. I mean, we're cutting prices because prices got so high people couldn't live. I mean, the prices for groceries, the prices for standard groceries, standard things were going through the roof. They couldn't live, and now those prices are coming down. So call them groceries, but that's down, energy's down, and interest rates are down. Everything's down. And the interest rates, the beauty there is when we refinance debt, you know, debt's become such a big factor in this country. We're going to start paying debt off with tariffs and other things. But it's such a big factor because the interest rate's so high. Well, now that's coming way down. So our budget's going to look a lot better because interest costs are way down. And I guess I've done that.
Many Israelis are watching you now on live show. What is your specific way of getting the hostages out from the horrific captivity?
We are trying very hard to get the hostages out. We're looking at another ceasefire. We'll see what happens. But we want to get the hostages out. The Israeli people want the hostages out more than anything. They want the hostages out. This man is working very hard with us to do that. I mean, I don't know. I hope he's being appreciated because he's been a great leader. He's working very, very hard on the hostages and many other things. And there are plenty of things you have to work on. It's a tough place in the world. I have a good partner. Yeah, you do have a good partner, and so do we. We're working very hard on the hostages.
If you're going to negotiate a new deal with Iran, can you elaborate how it's going to be more effective than the JCPOA?
Well, I can't really say that, but I think it'll be different and maybe a lot stronger. But they were so happy when we made that first deal because we did get a lot out. You know, I had people right in this office, this beautiful Oval Office. They came in, 10 people, hostages, you know that. And I said to them, so how was it? And the stories they told me, I mean, as an example, I said to them, was there any sign of love? You were there, 10 people. It's only 10, but it's pretty representative. Did the Hamas show any signs of, like, help or liking you? Did they wink at you? Did they give you a piece of bread extra? Did they give you a meal on the side, like, you know, you think of doing, like what happened in Germany, what happened elsewhere? People would try and help people that were in unbelievable distress. They said no. I said all of them. I said, did they ever wink at you like, you'll be okay, you're going to be okay? No, they didn't do that. They'd slap us. The hatred is unbelievable. and the lives. You know, they lived in a pipe, not really a tunnel, it was a pipe. And they always thought they were suffocating, they were going to suffocate. And then they'd open up the pipe, and it was like 3.5 feet high. This isn't, you know, we hear tunnel is bad, but pipes are worse. And the stories I heard were incredible. But I just said, was there any sign of potential love or affection? And there were none whatsoever. It was amazing to me. There was nothing like, here, take this, it's a little extra meal or something. They lived like hell. I don't know. They seemed to be, they were amazing to me because they seemed to be pretty normal. They weren't scarred, but I guarantee underneath they have to be scarred. And one was there for 356 days. Another was there for about 180 days, you know, a long time. These are people that have been really, really horribly treated. I've never seen anything like it, actually. I was very surprised to hear the answer.
Thank you, Mr. President. Are there 2 or 3 countries that on your list that you feel are farther along in getting their tariffs lowered?
I think there are many that want to get rid of tariffs right now. European Union, I mean, as badly as they've treated us, they brought their car tariffs essentially off. I guess they brought it down to 2.5, and I hear maybe to nothing. But it's not only tariffs, it's non-monetary tariffs. It's tariffs where they put things on that make it impossible for you to sell a car. It's not a money thing. They make it so difficult, the standards and the tests. They drop a bowling ball on the top of your car from 20 feet up in the air, and if there's a little dent, they say, no, I'm sorry, your car doesn't qualify. When the same car from Germany or anything would dent likewise, unless you're going to have an army tank, it's going to dent. So they come up with rules and regulations that are just designed for one reason, that you can't sell your product in those countries, and we're not going to let that happen. Those are called non-monetary barriers. They make barriers that are so tough that it's impossible to qualify. So tariffs are a big part of it, but there's another big part of it, and that's barriers. They also do something else. They manipulate their currency, and they drive it down. They want to drive it. They want to have low currencies. You know, it sounds better to have a high currency, a strong dollar or whatever, but they bring their currency down. And when it competes with our currency, it's very hard to sell a tractor. It's very hard to sell product because their currency is low and ours is much higher relatively. And so it makes it very hard. I speak to a lot of companies that do business, tractor companies, and they say it's so hard to sell because what they've done is they've lowered the yen or they've lowered the yuan or they've lowered their currency, so that it's very hard to compete. We don't want that either. So we have a lot of things that we're talking about, but we're going to fix it properly, and it's going to be fair to everybody. And in the end, I think we're going to have a world that does a lot better, you know, but they have to respect the United States. And nobody but me would do this. Nobody but me would do this. You know, it would be nice to serve, a nice, easy term. But we have an opportunity to change the fabric of our country. We have an opportunity to reset the table on trade. We lose billions of dollars. We lose close to $2 trillion a year on trade. We lose $1 trillion a year to China. $1 trillion. We lose hundreds of billions of dollars a year on trade to China. We lose hundreds of billions of dollars overall, probably close to $2 trillion. Why would we do that? Number one, why would we do that? And then you have to say, is it sustainable? Then you hear about all of the people that say, well, deficits. If we have a deficit with the country, or if the country has a big surplus with us, like China has a massive surplus, that they take and they spend on their military. Well, we don't want that. I don't want them to take $500, $600 billion a year and spend it on their military. I don't want them spending money on their military. And I shouldn't have to spend money. We shouldn't have to spend it either. Because, you know, hopefully, and I said this to President Xi, hopefully it's money that we're never going to use. In other words, because we're not going to use those incredible weapons that we have and that they have. We don't want that. So it's going to be very interesting. It's the only chance our country will have to reset the table.
That's U.S. President Donald Trump giving reasons for the decisions behind the tariffs being imposed in very many countries, a situation causing economic panic globally. And that's all we have here from beyond the continent from before, and we'll continue to keep an eye on the situation in the White House in Washington, D.C. Now, to remember that you can send your eyewitness reports to the WhatsApp number that we will be displaying on your screens. And to remember to continue to watch News Central Television, as we'll bring you all the reports and all the details that you need tonight. Thank you.